schoolteacher hired to serve a mountain settlement, abandoned at the depot on Christmas night, until an Apache found her. The last train whistle of Christmas Eve split the night like a blade. Evelyn Harper stood on the wooden platform of the Dry Creek Depot, her gloved hand raised as though she could pull the departing train back by sheer will. Its red tail lantern blinked in the darkness, shrinking, until it vanished entirely into the snow-hung wilderness. The sudden quiet afterward was crushing, too big, too empty, too cold. She hugged her wool coat tight. It wasn't enough. Nothing was enough in this kind of cold. The depot lantern flickered overhead, casting a weak halo of gold on her boots and the dusting of snow already gathering on her carpetbag. Every other building in town was dark, homes shuttered, churches lit from within, laughter and candlelight seeping through cracks as families gathered for Christmas supper. Everyone had someplace to be. Everyone except her. She walked to the depot door again, hoping, foolishly, that the station agent would answer this time. She knocked, her fist small against the frozen wood. No answer. Pinned beneath a tack was a hand-scrawled note fluttering in the wind. Miss Harper. Family got delayed. They'll fetch you after Christmas. That was all. No apology. No room prepared. No direction. Her breath clouded the air as she stared at those blunt, careless words. The wind tugged at her skirt, lifting loose strands of her hair. Snowflakes landed on her eyelashes like cold sparks. After Christmas, she whispered. That was 2 days. 2 days alone. 2 days in a frontier town that had already closed its doors for the night. She tried the door once more. It was locked. The agent had gone home early, probably to a warm fire and a family waiting with supper. A sharp gust made her gasp as cold knifed through her coat. She stumbled back to the platform and sat on her carpetbag. Her fingers tingled with the first hints of numbness. She told herself she could wait. She'd weathered hardships before. The train ride from Missouri had been long and uncomfortable, but she had hope then. Hope of a new life teaching in the Wyoming territory, hope of being needed, hope of belonging somewhere. Hope felt like a cruel joke now. Another gust sent the lantern sputtering. The light shrank to a trembling blue flame. Evelyn bit her lip until she tasted blood, trying to stay brave. But fear crept in anyway, slow, cold, insidious. She pressed her hands beneath her arms, curling tighter as the platform boards grew icy beneath her. The storm gathered strength, swirling around the depot like a living thing hunting for weakness. She lifted her eyes toward the tracks, half expecting the train to return, half praying for a wagon, a rider, someone, anyone, to remember her existence. Nothing came. The only sound was the wind keening through the telegraph wires. As the lantern finally died with a soft hiss, darkness claimed the depot entirely. Her teeth chattered. She pulled her knees to her chest. Just till morning, she said aloud, trying to comfort herself with the sound of a human voice. But the cold answered her, whispering promises she didn't want to hear. That morning might not arrive for her at all. She leaned her head against the platform post, eyelids heavy, breath shallow. The snow piled higher around her skirts. She drifted between shivers and exhaustion, unaware that somewhere beyond the depot, through the blizzard and moonless night, footsteps were already approaching. Quiet, sure, and headed straight toward her. The storm had teeth. By the time Evelyn drifted into a half-conscious daze, the wind was howling hard enough to shake the depot walls. Snow swirled across the platform in white sheets, collecting in drifts that climbed her boots and numbed her legs. Her breaths came shallow, slow. Her eyelashes had begun to freeze together. She didn't even register the first sound that didn't belong to the storm. Crunch, 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 steady, purposeful, growing louder. Not an animal, too rhythmic. Not a wagon, too soft. Evelyn forced her eyes open, brushing away ice with fingers clumsy and slow. At first she saw only whiteness. But something moved through it, a shape, then a silhouette, then a man emerging like a dark figure carved out of winter itself. Tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a heavy buffalo hide coat that billowed slightly in the wind. He walked with the ease of someone who knew these storms well, who understood snow better than most understood sunlight. Long black hair blew around his face, streaked with snowflakes that glimmered in the dimness. An eagle feather, tied near his ear, swayed as he moved. His presence was startling, too solid, too alive compared to the cold swallowing everything else. Evelyn's heart lurched in her chest. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out, and she clutched the platform rail to steady herself. The man slowed when he saw her. His expression changed, not fear, not surprise, but something more controlled. Alert, protective, assessing. He took a few steps closer, his boots crunching loudly now, until the storm's roar seemed to dim around them. Evelyn opened her mouth, but her voice fled before it formed. He studied her pale lips, her trembling hands, the way she swayed like a candle flame about to go out. Then he spoke, his voice deep and steady, carrying effortlessly through the wind. You sleep here, you die. No accusation. No threat. Just truth, cold and direct as the winter itself. Evelyn swallowed, trying to gather her thoughts. I wasn't sleeping. I just rested my eyes. He stepped closer. A few inches more and she felt his body heat fight back the cold. You are freezing, he said calmly. Too cold to lie. She blinked and tears announced themselves without permission, half from fear, half from relief at hearing another human voice. I was supposed to be picked up, she whispered. But they didn't come. I don't know where to go. The man didn't interrupt. He watched, listening as though every word mattered. I'm new, she continued, her voice cracking. I came to teach in the settlement. They said. She stopped, unable to finish as the wind cut through her again. He adjusted the hide cloak around his shoulders before speaking. My name is Taza. He paused, letting the name settle between them. My family hunts near the river. My cabin is a little way north. His dark eyes traveled over her thin coat, her shaking legs. Storm grows stronger. You come. The words were simple, but they carried weight. An offer, a warning, and an unexpected kindness all in one. Evelyn's mind raced. A stranger. An Apache man, a people the townsfolk had told her to be wary of. But the townsfolk had also abandoned her without a thought. This man had walked straight into a blizzard, and found her before death did. She tried to rise again and this time she managed, barely. Her knees buckled and she fell forward. A firm hand caught her elbow before she touched the ground. Warm. Steady. Certain. Taza didn't pull her close. He simply held her upright, giving her back the strength the cold had stolen. You trust me, he said quietly. Not a command, an observation. Evelyn lifted her eyes to his. There was no malice in them. No hungry curiosity. Only a quiet, unyielding resolve. A resolve that had found her when no one else had bothered to look. I do, she whispered. Taza nodded once, a warrior's promise more than an agreement. Without another word, he lifted her carpet bag with ease, slung it over his shoulder, and guided her down the steps. The storm swallowed them both, but she didn't feel quite so small inside it now. For the first time all night she felt a spark of warmth. Because someone had come for her. The blizzard swallowed sound and space, turning the world into a white, shifting void. Taza led Evelyn to his horse, a sturdy bay with a thick winter coat and a calmness that suggested it was used to nights far worse than this one. Snow clung to its mane like tiny stars. Evelyn could barely lift her foot to the stirrup. The cold had stiffened her limbs until they felt carved from wood. Without a word, Taza slipped an arm behind her knees and another around her back, lifting her with effortless strength. She inhaled sharply, not from fear but from the sudden, stunning warmth against her freezing body. His coat brushed her cheek, heavy with the scent of smoke and pine. He settled her gently onto the saddle, adjusting her skirt so the wind wouldn't cut through it. Her voice trembled. I'm sorry, I should be able to climb on my own. Taza shook his head. No need for sorry. Cold steals strength from anyone. He placed the thick buffalo hide blanket around her shoulders and then, with one smooth motion, swung up behind her. The horse shifted its weight, accustomed to the load. Evelyn stiffened instinctively, but the wind shoved her backward, pressing her against him. Taza's voice came low, close to her ear. Lean back. Easier to stay warm. Storm is too strong to leave space. She hesitated. She had never been this close to anyone, not even during the long train ride west. But another blast of cold made the decision for her. She leaned back. His chest was broad and solid beneath his coat. His arms came forward, holding the reins, effectively caging her in, not in a trapping way but in a sheltering one. His body formed a barrier between her and the roaring wind. The horse started forward, pushing through drifts that reached halfway to its belly. Snowflakes pelted her cheeks like icy needles. She clutched the saddle horn until her knuckles hurt. To keep her awake and perhaps to distract her, Taza asked, You came from far? Missouri, she chattered. Long journey, he said. She nodded, shivering. 7 days by train. And you came alone? When she nodded again he made a sound in his throat, not judgment but something like respect, mixed with concern. You are brave, he said. The words felt foreign, unreal. No one had called her that before. Not teachers, not relatives, not suitors who wanted her to stay where it was safe and predictable. "I don't know about brave," she murmured. Taza guided the horse around a fallen pine. "Then stubborn," he said. "But stubborn keeps people alive." The comment drew a breathy laugh from her, a sound of relief more than humor. She could almost feel him relax behind her at the sound, as though he'd been waiting to know she still had strength left. Minutes, or was it an hour, passed in weary rhythmic motion. When hoofbeats, her heartbeat, his steady breathing behind her. She felt herself slipping toward unconsciousness again, lulled by the motion and exhaustion. Taza noticed instantly. His voice sharpened, not unkind but firm as a command. "Stay awake." She blinked. "I'm trying." "Talk," he said. "Storm makes sleep dangerous. Tell me your name again." "Evelyn Harper," she whispered. "Evelyn," he repeated, rolling the syllables in a way that deepened their sound. "Why you come to teach?" She lifted her head slightly. "Because I wanted to do something with meaning. Something that mattered." He grunted in approval. "Good reason." She swallowed. "Why were you out in a storm like this?" "Checking traps near the river. Storm came fast." He paused. "Then I saw light near the depot. Thought it strange, no one goes out on Christmas night. So I looked." She shivered harder. "What if you hadn't?" Taza didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice held something quieter, something almost reverent. "Then the snow would have taken you." Her breath caught. He shifted his hands on the reins and added in a tone that left no room for doubt. "But it didn't. I came." The words settled in her chest, warm as fire. They rode longer, the world narrowing to the sway of the horse and the protective presence behind her. She felt the storm push against them, angry they were escaping. At last, Taza leaned down near her ear. "Not far now," he murmured. "You feel the wind change? Trees coming. Cabin close." And for the first time, Evelyn felt something other than cold or fear. She felt hope. A fragile ember. Protected. In the arms. Of a stranger. The storm's scream softened as the horse pushed into a stand of tall pines. Branches sagged beneath the weight of fresh powder, dripping softly as the wind lost its teeth. It was still cold, bitterly so, but the forest formed a natural shelter, muting the blizzard's fury. Evelyn felt it before she saw it. A shift in the air, a subtle warmth, a scent of smoke drifting through the trees. Taza slowed the horse. Cabin close. She lifted her head and saw it. A small structure tucked between the pines, its roof piled high with snow, a gentle column of smoke curling from the stone chimney. Amber light glowed behind the frosted window, flickering like a heartbeat in the night. A deep, quiet relief washed over her. A refuge. An anchor in the storm. Taza dismounted and helped her down. Her legs wobbled beneath her, but he steadied her with hands firm and warm against her cold-numbed arms. "You walk," he said softly. "Warm comes faster that way." She nodded and took slow steps through the snow-laden clearing. Each movement felt like wading through frost-bitten molasses. He opened the cabin door, and heat rolled out in a wave so comforting she nearly wept. Inside, the space was modest but already felt safer than anything she had known since stepping off the train. A stone hearth dominated one wall, flames crackling and casting golden light over the room. A woven rug stretched before it, deep red and black in pattern. Bundles of drying herbs swayed slightly from rafters. A wooden table sat under a window with a pine bough tucked above it, a simple gesture that felt like a quiet celebration of the season. Taza moved around the room with an ease that spoke of familiarity and solitude. He hung his coat near the door, brushed snow from his shoulders, and then turned his attention to her. "You sit." He motioned toward the hearth. "Close to fire. Slow heat. Not too fast." She obeyed, sinking to the rug. The warmth stung as it reached her fingers, then her toes, tiny daggers of sensation as the blood returned. She winced. Taza crouched beside her, watching her expression carefully. "Pain means life coming back. Good sign." "I know," she managed, rubbing her hands together. "It just hurts." He stood and retrieved a fur-lined blanket, shaking off stray snowflakes. When he draped it over her shoulders, the gesture was gentle but confident, as though he'd done this 100 times. "You need food," he said. "Warm from inside." He moved to the hearth and lifted a pot that hung above the flames. The scent wafting from it made her stomach tighten. Rich, savory, comforting. "Venison stew," he explained. "My mother's recipe." Evelyn hesitated. "Are you sure I'm not intruding?" Taza ladled steaming stew into a wooden bowl before answering. If I did not want you here, I would not bring you here. That simple truth warmed her more than the fire. When he handed her the bowl, their fingers brushed. His were calloused, strong, warm. She swallowed, unsure why such a small contact sent a flutter through her chest. She ate slowly, savoring each mouthful. The warmth spread through her limbs, making her feel human again, alive, grounded, safe. Taza watched her only enough to ensure she ate, then busied himself fetching more wood and checking the shutters. He moved with quiet purpose, each motion efficient and practiced. Finally, when she set the empty bowl aside, he returned to the fireside. You should sleep, he said. Body needs rest. Her eyes drifted to the single bed in the corner. Where will you sleep? He pointed to a thick pile of furs near the door. There. Her heart tightened. But it looks cold. Cold does not bother me. He paused, a hint of amusement touching his voice. Not enough to worry. She opened her mouth to argue but stopped when she saw the quiet certainty in his expression. He meant what he said. He wasn't giving up the bed to impress her. He simply believed she needed it more. He spread an additional fur near the hearth and handed her a small cup. Drink. Helps you sleep. What is it? Tea. From wild mint and spruce tips. Evelyn took a sip. It tasted earthy, sharp, and strangely soothing. Her eyelids grew heavy. She shifted on the pallet he'd prepared for her, a bed of layered furs that felt softer than clouds after the brutal night outside. Taza settled himself near the door, knife in hand, methodically sharpening the blade with slow, practiced strokes. Not threatening, protective. Watching over her not as a captor, but as someone who understood danger and refused to let it through the threshold. Before sleep claimed her, Evelyn whispered, Taza, why did you stop at the depot tonight? What made you look? He didn't stop sharpening the blade. But his voice softened. Light was wrong, he said simply. Storm blows hard, but I saw a flicker. Tiny. Like someone fighting to stay alive. Her breath caught. You came because of that? He finally looked up, meeting her gaze with a steady intensity that rooted her heart in place. Yes, he said quietly. I came because you were there. The fire crackled. Snow whispered against the shutters. And in Taza's cabin, wrapped in warmth, Evelyn finally drifted into sleep, feeling safer than she had ever felt in her life. Evelyn woke to light, not harsh daylight, but a soft, golden glow flickering across her eyelids. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. The warmth, the stillness, the faint scent of pine and wood smoke, it was all too gentle to be the storm-ravaged depot. Then she opened her eyes and saw the cabin ceiling above her, the juniper branches hanging near the rafters, and the glow of the fire still burning steadily in the hearth. She wasn't cold. She wasn't shivering. She wasn't alone. Christmas morning had come. Slowly she pushed herself upright. The furs he had laid beneath her were unbelievably soft, holding the night's warmth. Her coat lay folded neatly beside her, dried, warmed, and placed where she'd easily reach it. Someone had been thoughtful, careful, intent. She looked toward the door. Taza sat cross-legged on the floor, mending a leather strap with precise, deliberate movements. The storm must have quieted. The cabin no longer groaned under its weight. Sunlight streamed in through a narrow window, catching motes of dust that floated like tiny spirits in the air. He turned his head slightly when she stirred, but didn't rush to her or speak first. He simply acknowledged her with a small, respectful incline of his head. You slept well, he said. It wasn't a question. Evelyn offered a shy smile. Because of you. He resumed working, though she noticed the faint tightening in his jaw, as if praise was something he rarely received and wasn't sure how to hold. Body warms when it is safe, he said. Storm cannot take you once you have rest. His tone was practical, but the warmth in his eyes, the quick glance to check her color, the subtle relief he didn't hide fast enough, betrayed deeper concern. She rose slowly, stretching, feeling life in her limbs again. I don't know how to thank you, she murmured. You already ate my stew, he replied. A faint spark of humor softened his voice. Her laugh was quiet but real. It felt good, like something thawing inside her. On the table, a small pot simmered gently. He motioned toward it. Food ready. Christmas Day should not begin hungry. The words caught her breath. You know about Christmas? She asked gently. He nodded once. Some of my mother's family kept such days. They shared stories. Always said winter holidays mean gratitude. Sharing warmth. I follow that. He paused. Not in town's way. In our way. Evelyn sat at the table, touched by the simplicity, the sincerity. And your way is? To give what one has. To protect those near the fire. His gaze held hers across the small room. To honor those brought to your door. She looked down, suddenly overwhelmed by the quiet dignity of it. He served her coffee strong enough to wake the dead, then shared venison strips, a bit of fry bread, and dried berries sweetened in warm water. Everything tasted richer, because it came from someone who cared whether she survived. After breakfast, she moved toward the window, watching sunlight glint off the thick snowbanks outside. It's beautiful, she breathed. Terrifying, but beautiful. Taza joined her, standing a polite distance away. Storm left gifts, he said. Clean world. Quiet world. She studied the peaceful clearing, then turned her attention to him. You saved my life. He didn't look away this time. Snow would have taken you. I would not let that happen. There was no pride in his tone, just certainty, an unshakable conviction that protecting her was the natural thing to do. She felt something warm unfurl inside her chest, a fragile bud of trust and gratitude. She whispered, I feel safe here. His breath caught, so subtle she almost missed it. He looked at her fully now, his dark eyes intense but not overwhelming. You are safe here. She felt the truth of it settle over her shoulders like another blanket. A moment later she noticed something tucked near the hearth, a small wooden carving of a pine tree. She picked it up. You carved this? She asked. He nodded. Made it last winter. For no one in particular. Her fingertips traced the smooth lines. It's beautiful. He studied her carefully, his voice low. You may keep it if you want. She blinked. Are you sure? It is small thing, he said simply. To remember this day. The day you lived when you thought you would not. The tenderness of the gesture stole her breath. A Christmas gift, unexpected, humble, and more meaningful than anything she'd unwrapped in years. Taza, thank you. I'll keep it always. He nodded, but she didn't miss the way the corners of his mouth softened, the hint of a smile he didn't fully allow. They stood in gentle silence a moment longer before he added. Today you rest. Then when the men from the settlement come, you go and begin your work. He paused, a shadow passing through his eyes. But until then this place is yours. My fire, my food, my home. Her chest tightened. It wasn't mere hospitality. It was a promise, quiet, steady, and more profound than any words she'd heard in the West. Evelyn looked slowly around the cabin, this simple place of warmth and care, and whispered, This is the kindest Christmas I've ever had. Taza held her gaze and for the first time, a true smile flickered across his features. By morning the wind had quieted, but the silence it left behind was unnerving, too still, too heavy, like the blizzard had sucked all the sound out of the world. Evelyn woke slowly, blinking up at the roof beams, wrapped in warmth that wasn't entirely the blanket's doing. The fire had burned low, glowing like a sleeping animal. The storm's rage had passed, leaving nothing but white drifts piled against the cabin walls and a sky that seemed to hold its breath. She sat up, pushing her hair behind her ear, only to realize something else was missing. Taza. The thought struck with surprising force, sharp enough to make her chest tighten. She hadn't even heard him leave. Her fingers brushed the indentation in the blankets where he'd been sitting the night before, keeping watch while she slept. The faint warmth there mocked her. A whisper slipped out before she could stop it. Don't tell me you've grown used to him. She rose and wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. She didn't want to feel this way, this tug, this strange ache. It was absurd. She'd known him barely a day. Yet she stepped outside anyway. The cold bit at her immediately, though it was gentler than the night before. The world had transformed into a white kingdom, smooth, untouched, and gleaming beneath pale morning light. That's when she saw him. Taza stood a few yards from the cabin with his back to her, bare-chested despite the cold, breathing in the quietness of the morning like it belonged to him. Snowflakes clung to the dark strands of his hair. The muscles of his back shifted as he drew a long breath, the kind that belonged to a man who knew the land, who trusted it, who was not afraid of anything it offered. Evelyn's breath caught. She had seen men in her life, teachers, shopkeepers, farmers, but none who moved like this. None who seemed carved by storms instead of wearied by them. None who carried silence with such ease. He turned the moment her foot crunched on the snow. His gaze softened. You're awake. His voice was deep with morning rasp, warm in a way the air wasn't. I didn't know where you'd gone, she said, cheeks warming despite the cold. I did not go far. He lifted a small bundle of branches and kindling. We will need more fire. Of course. Simple, practical. But her foolish heart had conjured other possibilities. She bit her lip, embarrassed by her own disappointment. He stepped closer, studying her face with a faint crease in his brow. You slept well? Yes, thanks to you. And to your blanket. And the fire. She swallowed. And to your watchful, everything. Something flickered in his eyes, something almost like amusement but gentler. I am glad, he said simply. The wind whispered between them, carrying the scent of snow and pine. Evelyn tightened the blanket around herself. You don't have to watch over me this closely, she murmured. I know I am a burden. You are not. His tone left no room for doubt. She stared at him, surprised by the firmness in his voice. I found you on the edge of death, he continued quietly. It would take no honor to leave you half-healed. Honor. He lived by that word. She was beginning to understand. But there was something else beneath it, something unspoken. Something that made her stomach flutter unexpectedly. He turned toward the cabin. Come. You must eat. She followed him inside, warming her hands by the rekindled fire as he prepared what was left of the stew. She watched him move, silent, efficient, strong, and an odd comfort filled her, settling deeper with each passing minute. As she ate, he sat across from her, repairing a leather strap with concentrated skill. She found herself speaking before she planned to. When people abandoned me at the depot, she said quietly, I thought maybe God had left me too. Taza looked up, his hands stilling. Many people speak of this God, he said gently. But I do not think he leaves so easily. Her breath caught. What makes you say that? Because, he said, eyes steady on hers, you are alive. The words landed deep, so deep she felt them settle in the part of her that still trembled with last night's fear. Her throat tightened. You saved me. Yes. His voice lowered. But I came because something called me. I do not know what. Perhaps your God. His gaze held hers. Perhaps mine. Heat filled her face. She looked down, heart fluttering like a bird against her ribs. Silence stretched, not uncomfortable but charged. She felt him watching her, felt the weight of his presence, the warmth in those dark eyes she had come to trust faster than she should. She swallowed. You don't know me, she whispered. His reply was soft, a promise wrapped in certainty. I know enough. The fire popped, breaking the tension. Evelyn drew a shaky breath, feeling something shift inside her, something frightening and fragile and new. Outside, the storm had ended. Inside, something else was just beginning. The day passed quietly, wrapped in a soft winter calm. The storm had left behind a world so white and bright it almost hurt to look at. Snow draped over the pines, piled high along the creek, and glittered like 1,000 tiny stars trapped on earth. Evelyn stood at the cabin door, her borrowed blanket around her shoulders, watching the afternoon light sink toward the horizon. The cold air nipped at her cheeks, but she barely felt it. She was listening. The faint crunch of footsteps came first. Taza emerged from the trees, carrying 2 hares and a bundle of herbs. His stride was steady, but something in his eyes told her he'd been searching, thinking, deciding. She stepped out to meet him. Is something wrong? He stopped before her, snow clinging to his lashes. No, he said. But the trail to Dry Creek is open again. The words should have filled her with relief. Instead they landed like a weight on her chest. Oh, she breathed. He watched her carefully, as if measuring the quiet sorrow she couldn't hide. You have people expecting you, he said softly. A place to teach. A life waiting. Do I? She whispered. He frowned slightly. The school. They abandoned me, Taza. On Christmas Eve. Without a thought. Her voice cracked just barely. Is that a place that truly wants me? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Silence moved between them, slow as drifting snowfall. Taza? She hesitated, clutching the blanket tighter. I don't want to impose on you longer than necessary. His jaw flexed, a rare sign of emotion. You are not a burden. I know you say that. But surely you look forward to your life returning to normal. His gaze lowered to the snow for a moment, the briefest flicker of conflict crossing his face. Then he stepped closer. Evelyn. Her name sounded different when he said it, like he had walked miles just to bring it gently to her. My life has not been empty. But it has been quiet. Alone. His breath fogged between them, joining hers in the air. Since finding you, my cabin does not feel as it did before. Her heart thudded painfully. He lifted his eyes to hers, and there was no mistaking the truth in them. I do not know what comes next, he said. But I know the days have been lighter. The earth could have disappeared beneath her feet and she would not have noticed. Taza. She took a step closer. Then another. Her hand trembled as she lowered the blanket and placed her palm, shyly, uncertainly, against his chest. Warmth radiated through him, steady and grounding. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just watched her with a stillness that felt reverent. "You saved my life," she whispered. "But you gave me back something I thought I'd lost." "What is that?" "Hope." The word drifted between them, fragile as breath. For a heartbeat, they stood completely still, snow falling softly around them, breaths mingling in the space that had become impossibly charged. Then he reached up, slowly as if asking without words. His fingers brushed her cheek. Her eyes fluttered shut at the gentleness of it. "You are brave," he murmured. "Braver than you know." She opened her eyes, tears threatening. "Only because you came for me." It would have been so easy for him to close the space between them. But he didn't, not fully. Instead, he lowered his forehead to hers, their breaths warm against the cold. No rush. No firestorm. Just a moment so intimate it could have carved its place in the stars. When he finally drew back, his voice was soft. "I will take you to Dry Creek tomorrow," he said. "If that is what you choose." "And if I don't choose that?" she asked, barely audible. Taza's breath hitched. He searched her face as if afraid to hope. Then, his voice cracked once, a rare break. "Then you stay." Her chest tightened, pain and longing and certainty all tangled. She took a deep breath. "Taza, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what our lives would look like, or what the town would think, or what your people might say." He nodded slowly. "These things matter. But they do not frighten me." She swallowed, tears finally sliding free. "Me neither." She placed her hand over his heart again. And this time he covered her hand with his strong fingers, closing around hers like a promise. "I want to stay," she whispered. The words hung in the cold air, clear, true, unstoppable. A slow, relieved smile touched his lips. It was small, but it was real, softening the hardened lines of his face. "Then stay," he murmured. Snow fell thicker, swirling around them like feathers. The cabin glowed behind them, firelight spilling onto the snow, a beacon in the wilderness, a place reclaimed by their presence. He guided her inside, adding wood to the fire until it crackled brightly again. The warmth wrapped around them as they sat close, closer than before, hands still entwined. Outside, Christmas night settled over the mountains. Inside, Evelyn felt something she hadn't felt in years. Belonging. Safety. Something that might one day become love. She leaned against Taza's shoulder, letting the quiet speak for them both. For the first time since arriving in the West, she felt truly home.